There you will find all sorts of rubies and diamonds and emeralds and pearls. Every evening, there is a fair where they sell horses, citrons, limes, oranges, and grapes. You have all this in a street which leads to the palace. In the heat of a southern summer, life at Vijayanagara was only made bearable by water tanks, the swimming pools of ancient India. From the queens of the great courts to the peasant women in the fields, the women of southern India practice ritual bathing every day. This is where Europe learned that it might be a good idea to take a bath more than once a year. Noblemen and women, queens and their serving girls bathe within the palace walls in water brought from the river by an ingenious aqueduct system. The city of Victory is literally covered in game boards. Carved everywhere on boulders, the floors of temples and palaces, are dozens of games. So it's not surprising that chess was invented in India. It's called Chaturanga. This is the game that the kings of Vijayanagara played to sharpen up their battlefield skills. The elephant piece was the castle of today's game, and the most powerful piece. It can move in all directions and even leap over weaker pieces. This power reflected the unstoppable nature of the elephant, whose fearsome presence decided the outcome of the battles of Imperial India. A game of Chaturanga could last for days or even weeks, as long as a real battle, with the loss of the godlike king spelling defeat. After 200 years, the impregnable city of Victory fell to the Muslim invaders from the north. This was not just a battle for territory and plunder. It was a battle for supremacy between the Muslims' one god, Allah, and the Hindus' hundreds of gods. The Hindu general was beheaded on the battlefield, and the battle was over. His army stopped fighting, downed their weapons, and retreated when they saw their leader's head waved aloft on the end of a spear. The city was literally torn apart. To this day, it has never been resettled. The city that was in its day described by a Portuguese trader as large as Rome and the best provided city in the world is now, like Pompeii, a ghost town frozen in time, lying empty and strange amidst the barren plateau, the last seat of imperial southern India, a city of ghosts. But the South rose yet again, and conscious of the traditions of Raja the Great, built ever larger and more beautiful temples, the jewel of which is Madurai, the grandest and most graceful of all India's temples. Yet for every 100 people who visit India, less than 10 journey south to gaze upon these incredible temples. The central shrine was the home of the gods, and it was considered incorrect to build anything other than a modest but often gold-plated roof over the shrine. So since the central shrine couldn't be enlarged, the rest of the temple began to get bigger and bigger. This expansion created the ornamental gateways called gopuras. Now they took wing and soared to unprecedented height and glory. The ones at Madurai are particularly graceful and crowded with sculpture. One gateway has more than 1,000 individual statues on it. Today, the temple authorities repaint them regularly and in their original vivid colors. The result is truly out of this world. Grand as Madurai is, it is far from the biggest. That title goes to Sri Rangam, which is so vast that it could comfortably hold the Kremlin, the U.S. Senate buildings, and the Houses of Parliament, and still have room for the Palace of Versailles and St. Peter's in Rome. And in the temples, the ancient bronzes are still worshipped, 1,000-year-old hymns still sung, an unbroken line of cultural continuity back to Raja Raja. But to the majority of people in the world, even to many in India, this is a lost and forgotten world. Why have these temples, the legacy of Raja Raja, been ignored by the Western world? Part of the answer lies in what happened here in February 1838. The lost temples of India were discovered in February 1838 by a British Army officer called Captain Burke. He was told of the wonders to be seen in a place called Khajuraho, deserted for hundreds of years and covered by a thick canopy of trees. The trouble started when he came close enough to see what was on the walls.
I found the ruins most beautifully and exquisitely carved. But some of the sculptures were extremely indecent. The religion of the ancient Hindu could not have been very chaste.
The temple walls are covered with scenes of group sex, aroused males and eager females. It is not exactly what the average Christian expects to find on the walls of a house of worship. In the Hindu religion, however, things were very different. One of the many goals in Hinduism was the pursuit of love, and they saw nothing wrong with portraying the pursuit of sexual love on their temple walls. But these temples shocked the European visitor, convincing him of his moral superiority. "Our religion is sublime and pure and beneficent," said William Wilberforce, the man who ended the slave trade within the British Empire. "Hindu religion is mean and licentious and cruel." The sensuous nature of Hinduism was too extreme for the Victorians. The erotic temple sculptures and the lascivious activities could not be mentioned in mixed company. It was the Victorian sense of propriety that caused the temples and art of southern India to be ignored by tourists and scholars. A world that matched the Greeks in culture and the ancient Egyptians in building slipped back into the jungle, a lost world. The Europeans in India may have found Hindu gods and temples strange and uncivilized, but they admired and felt comfortable with the architecture of India's Muslim overlords and their one god, Allah. No many-armed monstrous idols here, no highly erotic sculpture, no dark sanctuaries with half-naked priests worshipping phallic stones. Here was an architecture that appealed to the European mind, full of graceful Gothic arches in white marble.